Hello there, and welcome to my second video since the big return. Today we're just going to be talking about how to set up tarantula enclosures. So let's crack on with the video. Now, depending on how you set up an enclosure all depends on how big the tarantula is and what type of tarantula, whether it's a terrestrial, which is ground dwelling, or an arboreal, which is a tree spider. Of course, you've got, so it could be a spiderling, and anything up to a fully grown, mature, adult spider. So I'm setting up a few enclosures now for when I get spiders in the future. Let's run through them, shall we? So here we have a setup that I would use for a small terrestrial tarantula, perhaps a spiderling or slightly grown on, but small. You can see it's a little deli cup, and in it all I have is some substrate, which I've used some Spider Life blended substrate. It's the first time I've used it. It's not too bad. It's a bit on the damper side. It's got a moistness about it, but it seems to do the job. I've got a little piece of cork bark which I bought myself. It's the first time again I've used this. This is Pro Rep decor pack, and it was a selection of little pieces of cork bark which will come in handy. I've used as a little hide. It's got a hollow underneath that a spider can hide in, and I've just used a little bit of moss as well, just to keep some moisture. I always find it tricky to supply water dishes for spiderlings just because they're so small. So moss is a good way of holding moisture, and I find that spiderlings do really well with that included, or most spiderlings do anyway. So it's a pretty basic setup, but it's not too big, and it means that it gives a small spider a chance to catch its prey and not to hide not too many places to hide. The problem with putting a tiny spider in a bigger enclosure is they will find really awkward places to hide, and you may never see them again. So it's always best to try and keep things smaller for the smaller spiders, and that's a terrestrial setup. So as for arboreal, smaller, maybe not quite spiderling, but certainly a smaller spider, I use these cups that you can buy from the pound shop, anything like that, little DIY shops. A plastic food container, I suppose. I pop some ventilation in using a soldering iron in the lid and around the base and some at the top, and I've had a number of successes with these things. The only problem I find with these is smaller arboreal species, obviously being arboreal, always seem to make the web in the lid most awkward position. So yeah, let's just have a quick look, open it up. As you can see, it's had a little setup in here before, but we're going to reuse it. So got an empty cup. I will use some of this soil. Now with arboreal, it's not so important to have deep substrate. The younger arboreal species may from time to time burrow. I had a small juvenile P. regalis which loved to burrow back in the day. So that should be about enough. Just a small amount at the base, and I tend to use little bits of wood, cork bark, anything like that. Let's balance that in. Something along those lines. And I will add, in time, I haven't got it with me right now awkwardly, I tend to add anyway, something like this. It's an aquarium decoration. You can buy really cheap ones. If it's a smaller enclosure, I'll break a bit off and I'll put it in. I have got one that I can use somewhere, so I'll do that. It just gives them a bit more hiding room, and it makes it look nicer, I think. And that'll do the job really for a small arboreal species. It's a high enough container. Make sure that's in a bit better. I will put some substrate in so it's a bit more secure. Bob's your uncle. That's all you need. It's for a larger terrestrial tarantula. This is a setup that I've just knocked together. Again, some aquarium plants, just for decoration really. And it gives the spiders a bit more of a opportunity to hide if need be. And I've got a few pieces of cork bark and made a little tunnel system just in here. A nice little hide that a spider can use. It goes right down onto the other side. A little plant across the entrance as well, just mainly to be aesthetically pleasing rather than anything else. But again, it gives the spider a bit more of a hiding space. I like to try and give them the opportunity to do exactly what they want. If they want to stay out in the open, got plenty of room. I've got quite a large water dish, it's quite shallow though. So yeah, I find this one quite useful. And then, like I say, the tunnel made of cork bark, plenty of secureness, make sure it's all secure. It's not going to move too easily. And yeah, the only thing I would do here now is just whack on a little bit of moss, just to, I mean, you can make it a bit more aesthetically pleasing, but should do a job. Keep it looking quite natural, I think. I mean, you can use live plants in some enclosures if you so wish. Just do your research, make sure you're not going to use anything that will harm your tarantula. I prefer just to use, for the time being, aquarium plants. Like I say, they do a job. They make it look nice, I believe, in my opinion. There you go. A little bit of moss on the top and around. Does a job, doesn't it? Terrestrial setup. I think there'll be one happy spider in there eventually. Let's talk about a slightly more grown on arboreal tarantula then. Very similar to the spiderling setup. This is a smaller enclosure, but big enough for a slightly bigger tarantula than a spiderling. Again, I've used an aquarium plant and some substrate in the bottom, not too deep. You've got ventilation and cork bark. I've got a couple of pieces of cork bark which I've wedged right into that substrate. They're not going anywhere. And you've got spaces in between, you might just be able to see. And in behind. And in between the plants as well. You'll find that your tarantulas will find somewhere. Arboreal tend to like to go in behind. They'll probably web up in this corner, make themselves a nice tunnel. That's what I find, especially with avics. They love to make little tunnel webs. With my pretty much fully grown pokey, that's got a little cylindrical cork bark hide that it hides in, and my avic has got something very similar to this, where it is webbed up the corner and it has its own cork bark and hides quite nicely, and they seem happy enough in there. It does the job. So that's pretty much it. As far as water dishes go, I'll more than likely have a little something at the bottom, maybe a little milk lid, something like that sort of size. And some people don't like to, but I tend to mist occasionally. But as long as you keep the substrate reasonably damp, little kind of water dish, you should be fine. And that does the job for an arboreal tarantula. Here we go again. This is me just setting up a small-ish terrestrial enclosure. It's not a spiderling enclosure, but you can see compared to a fully grown, it's a little bit smaller. Again, putting some substrate in. It's something I quite enjoy about setting up the enclosures. Getting your hands a little bit dirty. Maybe I'm weird, I just find it a little bit therapeutic. Yeah, so we've got some substrate. It's not too deep, but not too shallow. enough spider of the size I'm going to put in here to dig in. You don't want too much room for them to drop. And this, there's not much of a drop anyway, it's quite a low enclosure. So what I'd do next is probably find some cork bark and make a hide. So I found a couple of pieces of cork bark, and I've made a little kind of opening, as you can see. It goes a little bit further back than that, but I don't want to put my fingers right in. Little plant, again, just for decoration. And I might pop a little bit of extra substrate in because of all the rearranging I've done. I've got some shallower parts, making the carpet ever so dirty. Don't tell me, missus. Make sure there's plenty of substrate around to dig. Water dish, old water dish that I had spare. I like to kind of set mine in a little bit. Try and take it reasonably low to the substrate. Should do the job. And there you go again. Again, can add a little bit of moss if I want. I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. Say, it does a job. Should have one reasonably happy tarantula in this enclosure, given time. So yeah, from near enough spiderling to pretty much fully grown tarantula. That's the sort of thing that I use as a setup. It does the job. I tend to find my tarantulas do quite well in these enclosures, and I hope this has given you some inspiration or some idea as to how to house your tarantulas. Yeah, I hope it helped. Any questions? Pop it in the comment section. Any tips that you think I could do differently? Whack it in the comment section. If you like my videos, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and we will continue this adventure in the very near future. So yeah, there you have it. A few different ideas, different enclosures, just to hopefully give you some inspiration. That's what I use, and my tarantulas have always seemed to do quite well in them. So yeah, if you like them, if you're looking to set up your first enclosure, there's some ideas for you. If you like my video, like, subscribe, join my community, and we'll go forward and have some good times. If you've seen anything you think I could do anything differently, I'm open to advice. You know, I might be missing something here. Crack on, let me know. Yeah, I will be posting another video in the near future of my top 5 tarantulas for beginners. I will be talking about them and why I feel they're good species to start with. So yeah, join me, like, subscribe. I've been the Spider Guy. I will see you very, very soon. Goodbye.